Welcome to the Create with Katrina Julia show by Fit Life Creation, where we talk all the things on wellness, faith, marketing, business, and travel to create a life and business you love. I've been there, friend. I've walked from fear to faith, self-hate to love, corporate to calling, and bondage to freedom, along with transformation in every area of my life. I'm right here with you, walking along on my own path to creating. So tune in so that you learn how to create a life and business you love, hands-on. Let's create it. Welcome to an episode on this time last year. So yes, I have several videos and different things queued up for my fractional CMO and just Chief Marketing Officer and Marketing Like a Boss series, but I was really feeling pulled this week and last week as I was reflecting on stories and diving deep and comparing, where I am right now to 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. 5 years ago, I really felt pulled to do an episode on this time last year to not only for me to reflect on the gratitude, but for you to pause and for you to breathe and for you to reflect on how far you've come in whatever area of life compared to this time last year. And that's an arbitrary time frame. You could pick 3 months from now, or 3 months before, then, 3 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, or you could do it for all the above. And it's also something I've done with, vision and future forecasting with recording voice memos on what I'm imagining my life to be like a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and then also aligning the actions forward too. But that's another episode that will likely come up. I think we just got interrupted by an Amazon notification for groceries. But anyway, so let's talk about this time last year. So as of this recording, it is March 2nd, 2023, and I'm recording this in Atlanta, Georgia. And recently I've been, like I said, being bombarded by thoughts of realizing, what was happening in my life on every single level last year. So if you've tuned in the past with me, then you likely have heard me talk about 7 steps to success. If you haven't, that goes into what I call my 3x7 approach every single day. And what is 3x7, Katrina? So glad you asked. It's the 7 areas of life: spiritually, mentally, emotionally, relationally, playfully, physically, and financially. And 7+ years ago, I really realized, whether we realize it or not, we're either taking aligned actions to what we desire or not. And when we are intentional and take a minimum of 3 aligned actions in all those areas daily, things really start to transform. So that's what that is. And then if you also want to dive deeper into some of this, I definitely encourage you to go back to my prior podcast episodes and or on the blog at fitlifecreation.com, because it's literally what I'm doing as I voice over some of this and as it's jogging my memory. So first, on a spiritual level, I feel like my faith has astronomically grown. My belief system has astronomically grown. Just to give you guys some behind the scenes, I've recently been speaking and praying and aligning to create radical impact from things like being in B school for the 3rd time, social curators into the 2nd year, women entrepreneurs group that I speak on and do networking tips and share my offers every single week now, and radically been writing down journal entries and speaking out things into existence, listening to Amanda Francis's book now for the 5th time, speaking out scriptures and Proverbs 18:21, and then doing EFT tapping for releasing money blocks and receiving over $100,000 in the next 30 days or less. Now, yes, my income doubled last month, and I'm going to talk about compared to, say, last year, but it is like 10%. It was close to 10% of 100,000. So that should tell you, you guys, that even though I'm grateful and content, I'm also speaking out and believing radical transformation, not simply for me, but others like you that are watching me and believing and radically desiring, different things with passion, with purpose, with impact, with people, with profits, with giving back. Okay. That's just some snapshots of things going on, today, yesterday, last week, last month. And then I you may have heard on some recent episodes or it's coming up more in detail. I finished a project, you guys, that literally fell from heaven in several ways, but also took some aligned action over 6 months ago on an influencer marketing platform. I finished a project last month with Google on content I had already created on Instagram, and all they wanted was uploads of videos on YouTube and Google. So those are some financial things and shifts and mindset things that have happened, right? Then, so I'm giving you kind of the present, and then I'm going to go into this time last year. Then I've radically also aligned to way more community in Atlanta. So I'm part of Buckhead Business Association. I am part of ATL Girl Gang. I am part of and going to events with ATL Rising Women, Home Depot Backyard. I submitted a TEDx talk for TEDx Atlanta yesterday. I went to Home Depot Backyard for several events in January and also submitted for some possible partnerships and things with prior events I've done to take it on a larger scale to impact the community, to help in homelessness and cancer and vets and battered women and more. I've made a lot more friends and incredible connections and community, both where I am now in Buckhead and all throughout Atlanta. Okay. So the last 9 months ish that I've been back in Atlanta, I've traveled one time on a Virgin Voyages cruise. I've been continuing to take leaps of faith with projects with Matador Network, with Creators Network, with travel bureaus and other things. And I was deeply itching to go in December, especially when it was cold, like after December into January. But for several reasons, I felt pulled by our creator to stay here. And I'm so glad I did on so many levels. So those are some snapshots of some things happening now. Okay, on a spiritual, mental, let's see, emotional, physical. So some of you may or may not know, I lost over 55 pounds 7+ years ago and have kept it off. I've done fitness shows, fitness modeling. I haven't drank any alcohol for 7+ years to align to purpose, potential, to be a light and an example for people of living a life fully and unapologetically, limitlessly, without any external, influences as far as, any substances, so to speak. And I can tell you, I feel and am more free than I ever was when I drank. So those are some snapshots spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, relationally. I kind of hit on that, financially, playfully. I hit on that with travel or different things happening. So I've been on some recent socials. I talked about some things happening in the Atlanta community, making friends, went on a recent retreat serving, did a recent Atlanta 5K to help in homelessness. So those are some of the things happening in the present. Now, this time last year, it's, now March 2nd. Let me just kind of go back a little bit. So in early January, I was in Atlanta. I came back in December, or actually right after Thanksgiving. I had gone through all these countries, and then I came back to visit my friend Angela in Houston, one of my besties from college, plus needed to get my computer traded, and plus hadn't seen like her and her girls in forever. And then went to Transformation Church, and then felt pulled to come to Atlanta to spend some time with friends and services and just, in the holidays and different things. Okay. But then was feeling to a degree that I wanted to be back in Atlanta already in December, but things were not lining up. So I had a ticket to go to Colombia from Mexico City. So then in January, I ended up enrolling and being in the crew program where I got selected through the Project Entrepreneur program. And I'm also pulling up my past United and other like flight trips just to kind of jog my memory and give you guys some insight and some details. So I ended up going there and then spent some time in Mexico City again, and then flew to Bogota, Colombia. And you can see on my podcast and you can see on my blog, One Day in Bogota, Colombia, Top 10 Bogota, How to Be a Warrior Woman of Faith. I felt pulled to do a series on that. And then I was going to do a project that I got through a platform, Workaway, that I talk about in my 75 plus tools on the show and on the blog. But Bogota, like, even though I enjoyed so much in Bogota, Colombia, it was so cold for me, especially in the night. It would drop below 50 and below 40. And several things with the project wasn't feeling aligned to me. So I reshifted into Medellin, Colombia. And keep in mind, this is so important to say, you guys, before I was leaving Mexico City to, I almost forgot this. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for reminding me. Before I was leaving Bogota, Mexico City to go to Bogota, I was riding in the Uber on the way to the airport, okay? And I, for whatever reason, because this doesn't happen like very often, I felt compelled to pull up my email. And I got this not random email. And keep in mind, I was already focusing on rewiring my mindset around lack, thoughts of doubt, disbelief, especially anything to do with scarcity and anything to do with money and any past generational stuff or cultural stuff or corporate stuff I had allowed, accepted, invited, or believed. Okay. So I say that. So I was nowhere near in the space that I am now in my faith and in alignment with speaking things out, with journaling, with focusing on scriptures, with doing EFT tapping, with looking for evidence to support the feeling, mind, body, spirit, soul connection, with abundance, etc. At the same time, I was already being intentional and shifting the thoughts, beliefs, and fears into faith. Okay. Radically. And in the Uber on the way to the airport, I felt compelled to check my email at that moment. And I get this not random email from Georgia State University, you guys, that I had no idea that they had been pulling a portion of the income when I taught as an adjunct professor at Georgia State in Atlanta for like a retirement thing or something or another. And they emailed me that I had over $2,368 that I could withdraw like right now. So let me just pause for the cause, because the more we start to believe that we are worthy, that money is always supporting us, that God is always supporting us, whatever belief system you have, that abundance is all around us, and to redirect our thoughts to what is pure, just, lovely, and praiseworthy. One of my favorite scriptures is Philippians 4:8, and to believe that there are miracles all around us in every way, shape, and form. The more things start to happen that blow our minds, that give us evidence that is all possible. So I sat there and I remember just sitting there in this state, in the Uber, in this state of abundance and love and joy. And without going into detail with the Uber driver, and I'm fluent in Spanish as well, I shared, that I just had received this incredible abundant blessing out of quote unquote, from heaven, out of quote unquote nowhere, like nothing I had done. And keep in mind, I hadn't taught at that point at Georgia State for 5+ years. And they had never, ever, ever notified or told us that we had this quote unquote fund, right? So I like, thank you, that I'm so grateful that I was reminded to just tell you that. So then I felt redirected to go to Medellin, Colombia, which I had an incredible time. And I stayed there for like 3+ weeks. And I have my top 10 guide on the blog and on the show and on my Instagram guide. So all the things, and on YouTube. And one of the stories there that ended up being also crazy on a level of faith and miracles that I'm feeling pulled to share beyond the incredible experiences I had, from Comuna 13 and visiting, where Pablo Escobar, previously like the drug trade had been radically, transformed and, been named one of the most dangerous places in the world. And, and being there and experiencing so much transformation there and just in the city. one of the things that happened to me was I quote unquote got my phone stolen from my hands while waiting on an Uber. And I'm usually very, very careful. And I was, but like this super tall guy came and grabbed it. Long story short, you can definitely hear about it on the top 10 on Medellin, Colombia, on the show and on the blog. Long story short, I had in my head, like, this is so crazy, you guys. So many times, in life, sometimes I feel pulled or we feel pulled to kind of go backwards, right? Or not go backwards, but, out of wisdom, sometimes it's, don't do anything, don't be anything, don't say anything. But sometimes we're pulled to do crazy things on a leap of faith level that make no sense. And this was one of those moments, because you would think on a practical and logical level, when this random like dude steals my phone in Medellin, Colombia, and it's raining, and your girl's wearing a fuchsia dress, a bandana, and sandals, you would think I would just accept it and be like, okay, cool. But no, you guys, I felt in that moment the spirit inside of me rise up and be like, start running down the street. And literally, it was like it was like the spirit took over my body. Like, I can't even explain it. It was crazy. Like, I knew it was crazy in the moment, but then I felt such peace, calm, and confirmation, and zero fear. Zero fear. I start running down the streets of Medellin, Colombia. Like, somebody should have been taping me. Like, I'm reminded of my NBC Apprentice days, which I'm going to talk about on an upcoming episode, that somebody should have been filming me. And one of the things I'm speaking out into existence, that I will have a Limitless Global Girl book and show and all the things in some way, shape, or form, on a network, on a movie, etc. So literally, I'm running down the streets of Medellin, Colombia, in that outfit I just described. And there's an Instagram reel on this also, that prayer works. Like, of course it works. And I start yelling down the street in Spanish, screaming out, "Él me robó, ayúdame, ayúdame, él me robó, ayúdame," which means in Spanish, he robbed me, help me, help me. And you guys, this was my first day in Medellin, Colombia. And I had no idea that the culture, like on a practical level, nobody had yet told me that on a practical level, that the citizens of especially Medellin, because of what's gone on there historically and culturally and spiritually, really, really help people and really, really help tourists. And all of a sudden, this all happened in 15 minutes, you guys, less than 15 minutes. All of a sudden, all these people start coming out of the woodwork telling me he went this way, he went that way, he went this way. They mistakenly grabbed this other guy and started beating him. And I was like, okay, telling them in Spanish, don't kill the guy. It's only my phone. Like, calm down, and they stopped. Then this policeman comes up. Then we walk to the police station and he gives me his phone to try and pull up my phone on the GPS. And then in my mind the whole time, you guys, in my mind and the whole time, I had, God, I don't know what you're doing. All I know is I am open to you creating and receiving an incredible testimony in this situation, an incredible miracle for the people to marvel at. Whether you give my phone back, whether I get another phone and it leads to something else that's incredible, whatever it is, like, I'm open for it and I'm available for it. Okay, this was the entire time, this was the mindset I was focusing on. In the midst of everything and all the crazy circumstances happening around me. So imagine if we apply that to every single thing happening in our lives, that this pain that maybe I'm experiencing is for a purpose for people, or this challenge is creating an incredible opportunity. So shifting it constantly. What am I learning? Like, one of the things I always say is I win or I learn. So I'm always learning, period. I adopted that thought like probably 5 years ago, no matter what's happening in my life. So then as I'm trying to pull up the GPS on his phone, it aired out. And then literally it was like a spiritual like interruption. Because at that second, you guys, these three guys come up like the freaking magi in the Bible, okay? They, like, bearing gifts of frankincense, incense, and myrrh, and whatever else is there. Like, I think I'm missing something right now. But anyway, they come up and they're like, "Is this your phone?" And literally, I felt like in that moment, you guys, it was like the heavens parted. And I just felt like this moment of angels, like, ah. And I was like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And I said, "I don't know." In Spanish, I'm talking to them. "Yo no sé, muéstrame mi teléfono." Like, show me my phone. Like, I don't know. And they showed it to me and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I said, this is such a miracle. Es un miraculo. I said, what happened? How'd you get my phone? And they told me the second I started running down the street, like literally on a leap of faith and a prayer and spirit driven, that the guy took off in the opposite direction and they were watching because there's like this community coalition in Medellin, which keep in mind, I had no idea on a practical level. But on a spiritual level, I knew, I felt it. I tuned into it on a divine level, on an intuitive level. And they were like, the guy took off. They saw him leave my phone. And I saw the guy, and it was none of those guys. They saw him leave the phone on the side of the sidewalk. And they went and grabbed it, and they told me, and I found out later, they called 3 of my contacts to try to find me and give it to me. And later, other people in the street told them I was at the police station. Now, if that's not a freaking effing miracle, I don't know what it is. What is? Like a fucking miracle. I normally don't curse, but sometimes I do it for impact. And I was then sitting there in awe and wonder. And I asked the policemen and I asked like others, I said, has it ever happened that, a tourist got their phone stolen or purse stolen and it got returned or returned this quickly? And they said, no. Like some of the policemen had been there for 3, 4, 5, 10 years. And they said, never, and never like this, and never in less than 15 minutes. Like maybe we got information or maybe like part of it was returned, but nothing like this where it was untouched. Like I'm holding the phone that this happened to in my hands and I want an iPhone 14 or 15, but part of me just around the miracles of this phone and the experiences in this phone that I've had through so many things. And then also Mickey Mouse, like part of me doesn't want to let it go. My Mickey Mouse cover that I have from Portugal, with pink Mickey Mouse etched on it. Yes, I love Mickey. So back to this time last year. So that's all happening. And then I end up feeling pulled. I do my annual series on 75 plus tools to create a life and business I love. So that was the 2022 edition. Then I had always had Cartagena, Colombia on my list. So I go to Cartagena. I have these incredible experiences. And you guys, keep in mind at the time, even with that surprise gift, that came from Georgia State University of Finances, my income in January was nowhere near what it was this January. Okay. Like it was barely 10% of what it was this January, just to show you the level of growth that is possible while still living a life fully and unapologetically. Okay. So on Cartagena, definitely check out like what happened there on the top 10 blog and show. And I also have an incredible Healthy Like a Boss Colombia guide and 7 ways to create content like a boss. Then I started feeling pulled to I was started B School for the first time last year while I was on a press trip in Panama. So around Valentine's Day last year, I ended up being hosted on a private island in Bocas del Toro, or near Bocas del Toro in Loma Partida, with a luxury brand, Misty Moonlight. And, lots of things that I'm so grateful for, and lots of things that were completely unexpected and also on spiritual and unseen levels. And I share on my press trips episode, and we'll share more on an episode coming up with traveling for free and getting paid to travel. And I started feeling pulled. I got hosted for a travel summit by Wonderful in New Orleans. But before that, I was feeling pulled to see my parents because I hadn't seen my family in almost 2 years, you guys. They had thought they were going to come to Central America, but everyone handled the pandemic differently. So side note, definitely check out my top 10 Bocas del Toro Panama guide. And I went to the Women Travel Fest in New Orleans. Then my parents and I ended up aligning in Portugal. This was circa March. Let me look at my flights real quick. Yes. So right this time last year, I was leaving March 10th. I was leaving. So as I left Panama around March 7th, so I ended up leaving the press trip early, spent some time on my own in Bocas del Toro on another island. That's all in the guide, on the blog, and on the show, and on my Instagram and YouTube. And then I went to the the Travel Fest conference, met incredible, beautiful souls in person, like Beth, like Christine, Indira, and so many other people. And then I ended up leaving New Orleans. And I did this like overnight bus so I did this side note. I ended up going to this incredible glamping experience in Costa Rica again, because it was easy to take a boat from Bocas del Toro through the south of Costa Rica, a boat and a bus. And then I went on this incredible glamping experience on the east side of Costa Rica, which I hadn't experienced yet, for several days. And that's on my blog, show, and Instagram and YouTube as well. And I took an overnight bus and then flew from San Jose to Houston, and then ended up going from Houston to New Orleans for the travel conference. And then a couple of days later, I flew from New Orleans to Lisbon and spent a couple weeks there before, or not Lisbon, and then into the Algarve coast, where I had a beautiful Airbnb that's also on my blog and show, with top 10 Portugal things to do. And my parents met me like the second week there. And I share all about that on the Portugal blog and show too. And then I went through B school. I was going through B school February, March, and April last year. And I remember crying when I enrolled. I had started my business to business proposals and my influencer management program, which is also on the blog and show, and some episodes coming up again on that. And you can see that on my bit.ly at Create It Like a Boss, via Instagram, via the show notes, etc. Then I started feeling compelled on more content for video and content creation and all this. And then in February, my income wasn't even 10% of what it was this past February. So I share all that to say, you guys, you can see how there was like all this adventure, but also a lot of instability and a lot of like fear of being safe, stable, and secure, even though I was craving being in the same city. So I knew at some point, visionary wise, I would travel full time. I desired to do it on my own at least once. I desired to do it in the future with my future best friend slash purpose slash passion partner slash, fiance slash husband, etc., and with my family in the future and babies. And at the same time, I was already feeling when I stopped through Atlanta that I wanted again to have a home base and have my places, things in one place. And, now I'm in this space too of wanting the base, but craving adventure again. And, aligning things to possibly, work with some real estate firms on chief marketing officer work, and or apartment platforms. And then to eradicate even paying rent, and or being a CMO on site, and or for several properties across, a platform that's in 300 plus cities, and or signing up for a platform like Hello Landing, where I pay $1,295 and have fully furnished apartments, because even up to a 2-bedroom. Because the thing is, you guys, is now, like, I've of course noticed in the US that, I pay about $1,500 for a 1-bedroom in Buckhead. Whereas when I moved to Atlanta in 2010, I was paying $1,100 for a 2-bedroom. And so I'm looking at it like, okay, what's the wisest use of my money from a spend slash investment standpoint, and getting to financial freedom? And perhaps even when my lease is up in June, maybe going to travel for a month or two and just putting, my stuff in storage, or even 3 months. So there's a lot of things that yes, I love Atlanta, and yes, this is my base. But then at the same time, when you set up Airbnbs or even press trips or different things, some of the platforms require a minimum of a month to stay, or 3 weeks to do media or marketing or business. And then some of them are about a week or two. And then for Airbnb, a lot of them require, like, you can search on Airbnb, and then when you book places for a month, a lot of owners give you 30-50% off. Like, that's how I saved a ton in Airbnbs, staying, in over 25 in the 2+ years that I traveled. So I did stay a month to 3 months on average in many places, but some it was, a day, a week, etc. So I share all that to say, on this time last year and those reflections and that brain dump, for you to dive deep into the 7 steps to success and really journal and or voice, over into your voice memos on your phone on all the ways that you are grateful for the things that you desire, that you desired this time last year that have actually happened. To see that you are in a state of abundance and overflow and progress. And then once you clear that, seeing what you're speaking out for the future. And I'm going to share that on an upcoming episode so that can inspire you as well. So leave a review on the show. I would love to shout you out. And as always, friends, remember, create, transform, and inspire because you are born to. All the chats on faith, wellness, money, marketing, business, and travel so you create a life and business you already. Head on over to the blog, the podcast, and the freebies to jumpstart your transformation. If you're ready to dive into the online courses, the live events, or the retreat, and if you want to create with our community on an even deeper level, definitely check out our internships, our influencer collaborations, management, and brand engagement. Let's create it.